Yeah.
From Sci News, new species of duck-billed dinosaur discovered in Morocco. From prehistoric to present, my name is Ethan. This is Creature Guide Live Daily News. Now, let's jump into the animal news of the day. A new genus and species of dwarf Lambeosaurian hadrosaurid has come to light in Moroccan rocks dating to the late Cretaceous epoch some 68 million years ago. So, this is during the last 2 million years of the Maastrichtian stage of the Cretaceous period in northwestern Africa over in Morocco. And during this time, you would have had a series of floodplains and different conifer forests. But this is also long after animals such as Spinosaurus have gone extinct, since that was over 90, well, I'd say somewhere around, about 27 to 28 million years prior. And now you have a wide range of different species of sauropods. In fact, there are still bellysaurids here that coexisted with the Spinosaurus, but different species of mosasaurs and long-necked plesiosaurs have been discovered in the marine deposits over in Lake Cretaceous, Morocco. But this is interesting, a dwarf lambeosaurian. So an animal that's closely related to, well, compared to other duckbills, but closely related to animals such as Lambeosaurus and Corythosaurus over in North America. So let's see what we have here. Late Maastrichtian dinosaurs are the latest Cretaceous phosphates of Morocco. And so the Dawai titanosaur. So I guess this is one of those titanosaurs that have been discovered in certain formations. They will give it the formation name. They don't know exactly what it is, and they'll just, for instance, like the Dawai titanosaur or some the like Morrison diplodocid. It's not very specific. And then you have the Tyrannosaurus bellisaur. This is actually a larger species of a bellisaur. This is close to Carnotaur size, if not larger. Let's see, Saidi Chanani bellisaurid and a smaller Saidi Dawi bellisaurid. Oh, okay. Apparently they did it to a lot of animals in this region. Same thing for I think certain crocodilomorphs that haven't been named. Anyway, let's keep going. Duck-billed dinosaurs or hadrosaurids were highly successful herbivores that staged a major radiation in the late Cretaceous epoch. Hadrosaurids evolved in North America in the Turonian age, around 94 to 90 million years ago, before dispersing into Asia and Europe. Um, let's see. Well, I believe they were already there, but this is close to accurate when the true hadrosaurs started evolving. Before that, you had different species of like hadrosauromorphs, but more of like different late iguanodontids, so descendants of iguanodon. The presence of a hadrosaurid in Africa is perplexing because Africa had been isolated from Laurasia by deep seaways since the mid Jurassic. Now, that is true. Africa had been separated for a long period. So there was possibly still in certain areas movement because you had different members of the Spinosaur family over in Europe and Africa during the early Cretaceous because you had around 130, somewhere between 130 and 135 million years ago, animals such as baryonyx. Over in England, you had different spinosaurs over in continental Europe as well. And then you had animals such as Suchomimus much later into the early Cretaceous, like 110 million years ago, over in places like Egypt or possibly Niger, Morocco. Okay, so the resolution to the paradox appears to be that duckbill swam or rafted to Africa. It's possibly possible with a smaller species, especially a dwarf. But taking a look at the other animals in this area, this is Chinonisuchus, which is a member of the Dirosaurid crocodilomorph lineage, which first evolved possibly around 87 million years ago. However, they would cling on to surpass the dinosaur mass extinction. So Chinonisuchus did exist somewhere around 68 million years ago towards the end of the Cretaceous. And this animal could reach somewhere around 15 to 20 feet in length or somewhere around 5 to 6 meters. It was probably feeding on a wide range of different species of fish. Big question as to whether or not it might have gone after ammonites if it happened to go into the adjacent ocean. And then you have other members of the Dinosaur family, such as Dinosaurus. However, this animal existed far after the dinosaurs. So it was found in the same region as these other animals or the other dinosaurs during the late Cretaceous. However, it was found in a much later member of this formation. So in this area, this animal might have existed somewhere around 60, no, um, I'm not saying that right. 50 to 56 million years ago during the mid Eocene epoch. So it would have coexisted with different species of larger mammals, possibly even certain, quote, terror birds, and was possibly one of the top predators, probably also mostly feeding on different species of fish. And here is part of the jawbone of one of the fossils of Dinosaurs. These are very well preserved teeth and very distinctly conically shaped. These are definitely designed for slicing through fish. The reason I'm mentioning this is because if you look at certain, these are a bit thicker though, but it could be maybe the distance. They do look thicker. Um, the thing is that certain carnivores, despite them, being precisely meat eaters, some individuals, like if you look at animals such as Tyrannosaurus Rex, they have very blunt teeth because if you look at the animal's teeth, they're really shaped like bananas. I mean, they do have serrated edges. They can't slice through you, but they're not as precise as like different species of crocodilomorphs or even like other members of the theropod family of carnivorous dinosaurs like the allosaurs or even the raptors had much sharper teeth. Also in the region are medium-sized pterosaurs and members of the Asdarchid family, such as Phosphatodraco, which could reach somewhere around 12 to 15 feet in length when referring to the wingspan. Possibly standing somewhere around 5 to 6 feet in height, was possibly feeding on different species of small dinosaurs, as well as occasionally maybe going after fish, but that was probably a smaller part of its diet. So, the newly described hadrosaurid species lived in Africa during the late Maastrichtian age of the late Cretaceous epoch, around 68 million years ago. Named Mancaria bata, the dinosaur was relatively small, approximately 3.5 meters or 11 and a half feet long. Yeah, for a hadrosaur, this is very small. This is like smaller than the dwarf dinosaurs over in the Hatseg, well, the dwarf Hadrosaur more specifically over in the Hatseg ecosystem of Romania during this time, which you had, um, gosh, who's that? Was it Telmatosaurus, a smaller hadrosaur, bigger than this animal? That individual could possibly reach somewhere around 12 to 14 feet in length. Might have weighed as much as like 1,800 to 2,000 pounds. This seems like an even smaller individual. Maybe it was a youngster. Let me know in the comments if you think this is just a younger individual or maybe it really is the largest of its kind. The species comes from the phosphate mines of Sidi Chenin, Morocco, the same locality that produced the Lambeosaur and Hadrosaurid Anabia audicis, and is based on a partial skull. So this is also a distinct Lambeosaur in the region. Lambeosaurids were very successful during the late Cretaceous period. You can find different species of them, such as Laura Titan over in parts of Russia. But that animal was reached somewhere around 30 to 35 feet in length, or 9 to what, close to 11 meters, and weighed probably around 4 to 5 tons. So it was close to like Parasaurolophus size. It belongs to Aranysaurini, a clade of Lambisauron hadrosaurs endemic to Europe and North Africa. Well, this I did not know. I'm not too familiar with the specific subfamily of the Lambeosaurines, the Aransorni. Moncaria beta is distinguished from Anhabia odicis by the shape of the maxilla, which has a more ventrally placed jugal facet. A curved ecto ectopterygoid ridge, a more sinusoidal tooth row, a neurovascular foramina arranged in a line. However, the new species closely resembles Anhabiodysis and other Aranosaurians in its small size and many anatomical features. Whoa, there we go. Wow. So they're able to distinguish this specific upper jaw over here and the bottom jaw. It's very good. I wonder if this is either the back of the skull or possibly else a part of a neck vertebra. but this possibly the skull. Very distinct Lambeosauran features. The researchers also unearthed the fossilized remains of two other hadrosaurs at Sidai in Dow and Mara Lebrock sites. So, yes, the Sidai Dow. Um, some of these areas are referred to as formations, and some of them are referred to as sites. And I do not know why at the moment. I believe it's technically the same thing. Humerus and a femur belong to larger hadrosaurids, around 6 meters or 20 feet in length, implying at least three species coexisted. Yeah, North Africa was very odd. You had animals like the hadrosaurs, and you could say as well as the sauropods that you could find in different parts of Asia, possibly even certain parts of Europe. Not too common at this point, but they're still there. In North America, for sure. But the Belissaurids you do not find for sure over in different parts of North America, which you had a few species here. So this is quite interesting. Team's analysis suggests the hadrosaurid group Lambeosaurinae initially diversified in Asia, then saw dispersals into North America. Dispersal from Asia into Europe was followed by dispersal into North Africa. Multiple dispersals from Europe to Africa seem less parsimonious than a single dispersal, but are not impossible, particularly given the distinctive morphologies of Anhabia odysseus and Mancaria bata. The diversity of hadrosaurids in Europe and Africa suggests a dispersal driven radiation, with Lambeosaurans diversifying to take advantage of low ornithischian diversity. Huh. Well, that does make sense. Oh, let me know in the comments if, like, when it comes to the theory that dinosaurs were becoming less, there was a less variety of dinosaurs evolving towards the end of the Cretaceous. Let me know in the comments if you agree with that theory or you disagree. Um, let's see. So the diversity of hadrosaurs in Europe. Oh, did I already do that? Yeah, I think I did. Here. So this is another species of Asdarchid pterosaur in the region, much smaller though than Phosphata draco. This is Alcyone, and Alcyone was somewhere around 8 feet in length when referring to the wingspan. It was also another member of the Asdarchid lineage, but this animal probably had a much smaller crest compared to other species of Asdarchid at the time. And it is quite interesting because many are familiar with the much larger species of Asdarchid during this time period because you had animals such as Quetzalcoatlus, and which could reach, a wingspan of over 40 feet or 12 meters. And these animals, they were just a little over, 2.5 meters when it came to the wingspan, and just were probably feeding on smaller species of fish. Now, you also had different species of elasmosaurid plesiosaurs in this region, and this is specifically Xeropharsa. So, Xerophasaura, and this animal probably reached somewhere around 20 to 25 feet in length, or around 6 to 7.5 meters. And this animal was definitely feeding on larger species of fish in the region. It has a very distinct jaw structure, unlike with what you see in other species of elasmosaurid. It definitely has quite a robust skull compared to many other plesiosaurs. Now, this is not based off of this specific plesiosaur. This is possibly based off of Plesiosaurus. Now, this is over in Crystal Palace Park in London, and these statues were designed and created by um, Benjamin Hawkins and Sir Richard Owen, which Richard Owen was the paleontologist that created the name Dinosauria. So these were put here and released to the public back in 1854, and this was back when paleontologists assumed that animals such as the plesiosaurs were able to walk on land, as well as the other marine reptiles at the time. They could lift their neck out of the water and um, yeah, they could bend it. It was very flexible, and it wasn't until much later that this became very outdated. This would have been impossible, but for the time, this was a miraculous stepping stone into paleontology, and it's still a great statue, despite it being outdated. It looks great. Oh, And this is a distinct plesiosaur tooth. Not sure of plesiosaur specifically. But Xeraphosora existed somewhere around 67 million years ago at the end of the Cretaceous and was probably feeding on smaller species of ammonites as well as fish in the local Atlantic at this point. So these animals probably reached somewhere around 20 feet in length or around 6 meters and probably didn't have much competition with certain other marine reptiles in the area. However, there were other species of plesiosaurs, so they possibly, I don't know. Let me know in the comments if you think these animals had competition with other species of plesiosaur. And then last, you have a species of mosasaur in the region. There's actually there have been several that have been discovered in this site over in Morocco. But this is specifically a member of the Pluridensi lineage of mosasaur, and this is Pluridens. So Pluridens reach somewhere around what 15 feet in length, or a little over 4.5 meters, and was probably feeding on certain species of smaller plesiosaur within the region, as well as different species of ammonites. Now, the interesting thing is about this specific animal, and as well as the family that it belongs to within the Mosasauridae lineage of the mosasaurs, is that this animal, or specifically the individuals of this subfamily of Mosasauridae, had twice as many teeth as all the other species, or at least the different subfamilies, which is quite odd. Well, very interesting as well. And yeah, it's a bit of a mystery as to why, but that is what's helped give them their distinction within the family. African lambeosaurines are small compared to North American and Asia hadrosaurs, however, perhaps due to competition with titanosaurians. That is interesting because there have been a handful of sauropods that have been discovered within this region. Certain species remain unidentified, but let me know in the comments if you think that, or if you agree with this theory that the lambeosaurine stayed small because of the competition with the other sauropods. That is interesting. I mean, I would think that the Lambeosaurines would be focusing on like a lower, lying ferns, maybe certain species of shrubs, and the Titanosaurs, for the most part, are going to be focusing on, higher canopy forest. Why would they be in much competition with them? Maybe you have specific Titanosaurs that have more of a low feeding behavior, like possibly some Diplodocus did, or the Rebeccasaurids. That's a big question. Hadrosaurs are unknown from Eastern Africa, suggesting Moroccan hadrosaurs may be part of a distinct insular fauna and represent an island radiation. Um, yeah, that is true, but Morocco's over in northwestern Africa. So if it's referring to Morocco as Eastern Africa, um, yeah, that's not right. If you were talking about Egypt, that'd be correct, but um, which also they're not too common in that region. I don't know. I don't know. I'm confused about that. Well, let me know in the comments what your favorite species of African dinosaur is. And from prehistoric to present, my name is Ethan. This is Creature Guide Live Daily News. Remember to like, comment, subscribe if you love talking about animals, and share this show with everyone you know, because nothing is better than all animals all the time.